Shabbat Shalom. I have a friend who lost her wife a while back. And most days she's okay. She has a cheerful and even whimsical way about her. Whenever she finds a coin on the ground, she says it's a sign from her wife, a message, and she always knows the meaning of that particular message, given whatever context, whatever's going on at that time. Other days, the grief sneaks up on her, and she's suddenly carrying the kind of heavy load that tightens her chest and fatigues her and fells her into darkness again. When I see her like this, I know I can't treat her depression. I'm not her doctor, and thank God she has a good one. I can't bring her wife back. I didn't learn in rabbinical school how to raise the dead. I can't problem solve a way out of her grief. I know grief is not a problem to be solved. So what can I do to be there for her during those dark times? Some years ago, I made up a word for my answer to this very question. I was leading a support group for caregivers, those who are caring for parents or partners or friends or children, and even some from the so-called sandwich generation who are caring for both parents and children at the same time. And I was intent at that time on rethinking the word caregiving. Because giving seems to me it's about transferring something to someone else, something they need. It could be food, money, medicine, shelter, expertise, like medical expertise. And caregiving is sacred work, and I do not mean to undervalue it. But at times, it can feel transactional or unidirectional, that we're giving something to someone else. So what is the word for the other types of care that we offer people in our lives? What do we call a loving touch or holding hands or a hug? What do we call when we just listen to them talk or when we tell them our stories? This is distinct from giving care to another person. What do we call it when we embody that care through our presence? It is being the care. It's maybe not care giving, but care being. Care being is how I show my love for my grieving friend. When I answer the phone, if she calls, even if I don't have the time to talk really at that time, when I send her photos of my dog Benny doing something cute, which is so often, he does a lot of cute things, when we grab coffee and go on a walk, when I ask when she last found a coin on the ground. The story that I use to really grasp on to this idea of care being comes from this week's Parsha. Joseph, the famous dream interpreter, is the favored son. Perhaps lacking in some humility or self-awareness, he interprets two of his own dreams in a way that incites even more jealousy among his brothers to the point that they consider murder. But instead they settle for throwing him into a pit. Rabbi David Shuck, a colleague in New Rochelle, challenges us to imagine Joseph's experience in that pit. It must have been terrifying to be alone in the dark, likely injured from the fall, surely in emotional and spiritual pain too. abandoned by his brothers, who the Torah tells us they're sitting and enjoying a meal, perhaps within earshot. Not sure whether anyone will come to save him. I imagine being in a pit or being in any place of this deep kind of suffering is not only that I'm in the pit, but what makes it worse is that I can imagine and really even hear life happening all around me without me. Joseph hears his brothers having a meal, and that detail is specifically mentioned in the Torah. Maybe he hears the clank of their wine jugs, maybe the scraping of their plates, maybe their laughter. He is exposed to and adjacent to life, but he cannot access it from within the pit. I think of my friend, now without her wife, having a drink with a group of couples, watching their subtle, affectionate glances, hearing them say "we" the way that couples do. She smiles at all the expected moments, but I wonder what is happening on the inside. I know that even though she doesn't look like she's in a pit, she's out, she's dressed up, she's laughing with friends, but I know that part of her is also in the pit. Dr. Brené Brown, in her work on empathy, incredibly coincidentally, unless we think she's specifically referencing the Torah, she uses the very same metaphor of the pit to distinguish empathy from sympathy. So this is, in her words, empathy is feeling with people. When someone is in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, "I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed." And then if we're empathetic, we look, we see them in the pit, we look and we say, "Hey," and we climb down. "I know what it's like down here. And now you're not alone." That's empathy. By contrast, sympathy is if we encounter the same person, we look down into the hole and we say, "Ooh, that looks bad. You want me to throw down a sandwich?" So often, we might do one or the other, but I think we can all feel that offering a sandwich might be helpful, but it's not empathy. When we encounter someone who's suffering, a lot of the time we don't know exactly what to say and we don't know exactly what to do, but the deeper point is to try to show that empathy, to show our presence. This is Brené again. The truth is, rarely can a particular response make something better. What makes something better is connection. What makes something better is connection. Or in other words, care-being. When we peer down from the edge and see someone stuck in a pit, our human instinct is to try to figure out how can we pull them out. We might reach down, we might throw a rope, we might encourage them, we might even beg them to climb out. But for whatever reason, they might not be able to. Maybe they're too tired, maybe they're too sad, and maybe this is temporary, or maybe sometimes it could be that it's forever. They're not able to get out. But what if instead of trying to pull them out, we climbed in? Not to take on their pain as our own, but to sit with them in theirs. These are the moments that call for a kind of courageous care. And instead of giving that care, we might need to embody that care being through our presence. I have seen our community show up for each other during times of grief. our Nichum Avelim, our Comforting Mourners Committee, works with me to make check-in calls to each person who has had a close family loss. And you may, if you have had a loss, you may have received an introduction email or a phone call, some kind of an outreach from the members of this committee. And also, 6 times a year, we invite mourners to join a clergy-led grief group, which is called Support After Loss. And we, the clergy, we do our best, and we love doing it. But the real magic of this group is in the ways that we get in the pit for each other, because it's not easy to do. Rabbi Shuck advises careful empathy, or in his words, the cultivation of an ability to be in that dark place with other people without trying to run away and without trying to rescue them, without making them apologize for their pain or their anger or their questions. And in a similar spiritual direction from a different tradition, the Christian theologian Howard Thurman, who was one of the advisors to Martin Luther King Jr., wrote in this poem on the power of presence in a time of sorrow. I share with you the agony of your grief. The anguish of your heart finds echo in my own. I know I cannot enter all you feel, nor bear with you the burden of your pain. I can but offer what my love does give, the strength of caring, the warmth of one who seeks to understand, the silent, storm-swept barrenness of so great a loss. This I do in quiet ways, that on your lonely path you may not walk alone. Sometimes we are in the pit and we're Joseph ourselves. We're the ones in pain. We're the ones in grief. And sometimes we're in the pit as the family or friends. And in those times, we must remember that even if we don't know what to do, even if we don't know what to say, our presence with an engaged heart is itself care. We can make sure that no one is truly alone. My friend is doing okay now, and we have found a way to be in the pit with her when she needs us. And I pray, may we all find the strength to continue in empathy and in connection, caregiving and care-being. Shabbat Shalom.
Go on.